Welcome back, medical coders and healthcare providers. I'm so excited you're here for part 6 of our medical decision-making deep dive. Today, we're taking on what is honestly one of the most misunderstood areas of the CPT 2026 guidelines. We're talking about Element 2, the amount and/or complexity of data to be reviewed and analyzed. Get ready, because we're going to make this crystal clear.
Let's be real for a second. The data rules in these CPT 2026 updates, they can feel like a total labyrinth. It's just so easy to accidentally undercount your work, leaving those well-deserved evaluation and management points right on the table. Or worse, overcount and put yourself at serious risk for an audit. But hey, don't sweat it. In this explainer, we're going to fix that completely. I'm going to give you a highly structured, rock-solid framework so you can score your data with absolute confidence.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Decoding MDM data complexity. 2. The 3 data categories. 3. Key definitions and nuances. 4. Scoring your data levels. And 5. Avoiding double counting traps.
Section 1. Decoding MDM data complexity.
So remember, data complexity is element 2 of the 3 key medical decision-making elements. And altogether, these evaluate the sheer cognitive effort it takes to manage patient information. You know, EMM coding isn't about physical procedures. Not at all. It's entirely about the cognitive service. It's the heavy mental lifting your providers do every day. When we talk about analyzed data, we're talking about the cognitive process of using medical records, tests, or external communications to really fuel that thought process for a diagnosis, evaluation, or treatment. Basically, it's the brain power behind the medicine.
Section 2. The 3 data categories. To make this massive amount of information actually manageable, the AMA brilliantly divides data into 3 specific categories. We've got Category 1, which covers tests, documents, orders, and independent historians. Then there's Category 2, focusing on the independent interpretation of tests. And Category 3, which is all about the discussion of management or test interpretation. We're going to break these down one by one right now so you know exactly where to find every single point.
Let's start with Category 1. This is your bread and butter, guys. It's where most coders and providers capture their data points. It includes reviewing prior external notes from unique sources, reviewing the results of unique tests, ordering unique tests, and assessments that require an independent historian. And what's really amazing here is that you can just sum these different elements together to hit your required threshold. It's literally like gathering ingredients for a recipe.
Section 3. Key definitions and nuances.
Now I really need you to pay close attention to this part, because misinterpreting these definitions is absolutely the biggest trap for medical coders under the 2026 guidelines. The most crucial point is understanding the difference between a unique test and a clinical panel. Listen, a unique test is defined strictly by its distinct CPT code. You absolutely cannot unbundle a panel to score more points. No way. For instance, a CBC with differential includes overlapping elements, right, like hemoglobin and platelet count, but it only counts as one unique test. Please don't fall into the trap of counting those overlapping elements separately.
Moving on to the independent historian. This is an individual, maybe a parent, a guardian, surrogate, or a witness, who steps in to provide necessary history because the patient simply can't do it themselves, whether that's due to a developmental stage, dementia, or psychosis. But here is a really critical nuance you absolutely have to remember. Utilizing translation services does not, I repeat, does not qualify as utilizing an independent historian. An interpreter is just translating the patient's history. They aren't providing it themselves.
So, what does external actually mean in this context? Well, external notes or sources have to come from a provider in a completely distinct group practice, a different specialty or subspecialty, or a totally unique facility like a hospital or a nursing facility. Reviewing notes from your own internal group practice in the exact same specialty, yeah, that doesn't count as external.
All right, let's look at Category 2, independent interpretation. This applies when your provider personally interprets a test that was actually performed by another provider. But there's a massive caveat here you got to watch out for. There must be a CPT code for the test, and your provider must not separately report or bill for that interpretation. If they bill for it separately, they simply cannot count it here for MDM.
And that brings us to Category 3, discussion of management or test interpretation. Now this has to be a direct, interactive exchange. Just forwarding chart notes? That doesn't count. You need a real, live, back-and-forth conversation. And interestingly enough, this exchange can be with an external physician, a qualified healthcare professional, or an appropriate source. And believe it or not, non-clinical professionals like a lawyer, a parole officer, or even a teacher, they completely count as appropriate sources. Informal family caregivers, however, do not.
Section 4. Scoring your data levels. Now that we've got all our ingredients and definitions straight, it is time to learn how to calculate the final score. This scoring matrix brilliantly shows how the cognitive burden scales up. To reach a limited data level, you just need to meet the requirements of 1 out of 2 categories, specifically categories 1 or 2. For moderate, you need to meet the requirements of at least 1 out of all 3 categories. But to hit that extensive level for high complexity, you must meet the requirements of at least 2 out of the 3 categories. As you can see, the cognitive demand takes a pretty significant jump right there.
Let's make this super concrete with a scoring example from moderate data. Remember, you only need to satisfy 1 of the 3 categories. So, you could hit it by pulling any combination of 3 items from category 1. Say your provider orders a basic metabolic panel, orders an X-ray, and reviews 1 external note. Boom! That's 3 items, you've got moderate data. Alternatively, they could just perform an independent interpretation of a test under category 2. Or they could have an interactive discussion under category 3. Any single one of those paths gets you right to moderate.
Section 5. Avoiding double-counting traps. We are officially entering the danger zone. These are the exact issues that trigger audits, so listen really closely to the absolute golden rule of MDM data. No double dipping. If your provider bills the professional component of a test or service separately with its own distinct CPT code, say they bill for reading an EKG, you absolutely cannot count the review or interpretation of that exact same EKG toward your MDM data points. You either get paid for it via the specific CPT code, or you get credit for it in the EIM MDM. You cannot have both.
And finally, we have the timing trap. Under CPT 2026, tests that are ordered during an encounter are presumed to be analyzed when the results actually come back. This means you count the test for MDM points on the exact day it is ordered. But here is the massive trap. When the patient returns for their follow-up and the provider reviews those results, you do not count that test again as reviewed. You already took credit for it on the day it was ordered.
So I'll leave you with this question. With this new framework in your back pocket, will you capture every single MDM point you deserve without triggering an audit? I certainly believe you will. Understanding these specific CPT guidelines totally transforms data complexity from a massive headache into a straightforward checklist. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Decode Healthcare with Herschel.